Top 5 college football overs. Craig and I talked about some of these win totals on Friday. And look, I'm not telling you to bet these, but I'm saying that I think these teams are going to go over the win totals. And I got the aggregates from VegasInsider.com, so they have them all. So this is the average of what everybody did across. So number 5, I'm taking Michigan over 9.5 wins. This is a team that returns its quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and the schedule is pretty easy. Look, they start out, the first 4 games are East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. Then they go to Nebraska and Minnesota, which will be tougher than the first 4. But
really?
But I think there's a talent gap there.
Better watch out talking that trash. Matt Rule's there now. Yeah. He's your buddy. You have to actually hear from him.
He has not sent me tickets yet, so until he does.
Indiana at Michigan State, Purdue with a new coach, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. Now, that last 4 stretch is tough. It's going to be tougher. Even Purdue with a new coach and Hudson Card and all that. But Penn State at Maryland, at Ohio, or at home for Ohio State, that's a tough stretch. But I'm still going that this team is going to be at 10 wins almost pretty easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're actually above 9.5 some other places. So what does that tell you? That 10 at least looks like you could have put that up there, and that would have been probably as debated. But I think with 9.5, or it actually maybe more debated, because I think at 9.5, seems like over is very fair. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair given the schedule, given the returning talent, given the momentum.
Blake Corum's coming back. Donovan Edwards coming back.
Corum, we need to see how healthy he is, but they should have a running back available, or 5, to be able to pick up what any slack he's not able to pick up maybe right away. I don't know. I haven't seen an update on him in a while. I know he's progressing, but I just don't know. Like, it's like a Cam Rising thing. Is he available right away? But early in the season, they should be fine. I mean, all the pieces are there, especially coming off of the heels of last year and the confidence that has to give you. That doesn't carry over necessarily, like the winning part of it, but just the fact that you've beaten Ohio State, you've been to the playoff, you won the Big Ten, you did all of those things. That's a big deal, man, even if it's a different team. But there's a lot of those team members that are back, as you said. So, yeah, I think that they're set up very well.
I think it also means something for even a guy who is supremely confident like Jim Harbaugh, because he lives on Jim Harbaugh planet and no one else's.
Right.
I think it's important for him and the coaching staff to have done this a couple of times and know that it's not just how do we do that this time? It's not a fluke anymore. Number 4, Kentucky. 6.5. I'm going to say over on Kentucky. Devin Leary, I don't know if we've been talked about enough. This dude is really good, and would have, had he come out healthy this year, been probably picked, I would say, before Will Levis, who was the quarterback at Kentucky last year. But he wasn't healthy, and he came back, and we got to get Steven in here or something to get these flies out of here. Because they're back.
They're like fruit flies.
Yeah.
But all that pizza in the trash can.
But 6.5 wins for Kentucky when you start out with Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, and Vanderbilt and Florida. Those they should all win. And I know Florida is maybe the biggest wild card. Then they go to Georgia. Let's not get it twisted there. Mizzou, Tennessee, going to be a tough one, obviously. Mississippi State, Bama, South Carolina, and Louisville. There's 7 wins in there to me, guys, especially when you have Devin Leary at quarterback, who I think is going to be and I liked Will Levis. I think Will Levis is probably going to have, in my opinion, a good NFL career. But I think Devin Leary is actually an upgrade.
They're going to play defense because of Stoops. They're going to run the ball well, but now they have somebody they can, again, toss it around the neighborhood, and then, I mean, it's just they're in a nice mode right now. They're kind of humming along, and I think 7+ wins, 7-8 wins is not too far fetched by any means.
No, it's not far fetched at all. It's I mean, it's a team that's regularly going to be in bowl games. You'd expect for the foreseeable future, and that wasn't necessarily how you always felt about Kentucky football, and now it's kind of. Bottom line for them is, they're going to be good enough to win a few games and make a bowl, but to what extent can they build upon that? So, at 6.5, I think that's an interesting number, but I'll be somebody that joins you in going over there based on the schedule and the big pickup at quarterback, as you mentioned. I mean, you don't do that to barely make a bowl game. You don't do that if you like the rest of the team sucks and you have no hope. But like Devin Leary's going to come in and he's going to magically turn it into an 8-win team for you. You know, you feel like you've got a pretty good situation. You bring him in, he's the finishing piece that puts you over the top. And I like them over 6.5.
I'll tell you this, in my opinion, Alabama is going to regret not getting in the Devin Leary Derby, or if they didn't or not. I don't know if they did. But
I mean, they should start off 4-0.
Yeah.
So can they win 2 more games? Now I know. Then all of a sudden you start throwing in the big names, and they got to play those names. But I mean, what's Florida going to be like? They could start off 5-0. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then they're not going to beat Georgia. I mean, that's 99.9% chance they lose that game. But those first 5 are all very winnable. They could be 5-0 heading into Athens,
and then just have to find 2 wins.
Yeah,
the rest of the way out.
Yeah, which is easier said than done because it is the SEC, Tennessee, Alabama. But yeah, Mississippi State, they're not expected to be fantastic by any means with the coaching change. South Carolina, same. Louisville, who the hell knows by the end of the year? It's a rivalry game. Missouri. So, yeah, I think that there's definitely 2 more wins you could find in there.
Yeah. Number 3, Kansas. I'm saying it, back-to-back years in bowl games, over 5.5 here for Kansas. They're returning a quarterback who we all know is really good and really good in close games, too. Jalen Daniels is. I think that is, to me, because Kansas is going to have to ride that down the line. Now, their schedule is probably tougher, especially for them, than anybody else. Look, their second game is Illinois. Brett Bielema, I don't think is going to slow down anywhere, like not a lot, although they did. Illinois lost their quarterback. They lost their running back. They lost Devin Witherspoon. They lost some guys. So Bielema's going to have to build that up, but that game's a lot more of a toss-up it would have been in Illinois coming off a bowl year, and Kansas in most years. Nevada, they have BYU is going to be tough, and of course they get in the Big 12 schedule. But I just think the way that they navigated it last year, that they're going to find a way to 6 wins. I really do. And what Lance Leipold is doing there, I don't like if it's over 5.5 to me means 6. Could they get to 7? Yeah, I don't want to go too much past that in my confidence.
I think it's great that KU and Kansas State have their coaches under contract for extensions, for big money. And obviously that doesn't mean that they still can't be looked at with others' wandering eyes, but I think that's pretty cool that they're both pretty solid with what they have with Leipold and also Kleiman.
Well, the good news for Kansas, though, is the 2 jobs you would have said that Leipold would really fit well are Nebraska and Wisconsin. Well, they just spent big money on new coaches of their own. So.
But those are the ones that were open.
Yeah, too. Yeah.
We didn't go and say, like, the ones that have people, planted there because that could change overnight. But you're right. I mean, it was a good sign that, he made the commitment that he did and didn't end up, moving on after getting them to a spot where you kind of feel like the wheels are finally in motion. So I think, coming off of last year and Jalen Daniels back and, Devin Neal back and, many others as well, that should be bare minimum 5.5. Well, yeah, I say over here. I think, especially the newcomers, we just treat them like they're just walking in like they've already been in the Big 12 for years. Like somebody's going to have to adjust. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if it's going to be Cincinnati. I know BYU's played this all-star schedule or, it's close to it, a tough schedule for a while, and so they're used to it and feel like there won't be as much of an adjustment maybe as some of the others. I don't know, but I mean, I don't expect all of them to come in just guns blazing. And so you play, UCF, BYU. Maybe there's a couple of games you can get, but yeah, within the Big 12, I think there's a couple that they can get as well. They do play Oklahoma and Texas, but they got Oklahoma at home there. Who knows what the Sooners look like at that point? I mean, so yeah, I definitely am going over 5.5 for KU. I wouldn't go like 7, 8 and go crazy, but yeah, can they win 6 games? Yeah, absolutely.
They were not a fluke. It wasn't like they just happened to be like bounce into a couple of wins. They have the quarterback. They're tough. Well, that doesn't mean they're going to go 9-3 or 4, but it was done and it's being built very methodically by Leipold.
And they pushed a lot of teams to the limit last year too. Even in games that may have been lost by 10 or so points, they did push those teams to the limit last year. Number 2, and this one's obvious, Georgia over 11.5. This team is going to finish with 12 wins. Now, are they going to finish with all the wins? No, but between the SEC title game and an inevitable playoff appearance, in my opinion, Georgia over 11.5. And I know that that's like it's a hard one to swallow, but This is their schedule, and I will rattle.
Is this before the SEC championship game? 12 wins.
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that would still get them to that. But if you throw that in there, look,
if you throw that in there, then hell yeah. I mean, you're basically, if this is regular season only, it's more interesting because with 2 postseason games probably, then they're definitely over.
Maybe 3, right?
So UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, UAB, Auburn, Kentucky, Vandy, Florida, Mizzou, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech, and only Tennessee on that schedule to me is one that can.
Where do they play South Carolina? I know that they're
at home.
Okay.
South Carolina's. I mean,
I know,
there's
but
split
it's
opinions on them.
I know, but if they were hot at the end of the year, dangerous. I'm not saying for Georgia, but just curious. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, week 3 in Athens, I don't really buy their chances all that much right there. But yeah, I understand. There's. You're trying to just look for who could pop up. I mean, at Tennessee the next to last week, I don't think it's just necessarily chalk it up as an automatic because we don't know at that point what anybody looks like. But, yeah, I mean, for the most part, outside of that game, you're not really worried about any others. I think Auburn on the road, just with, the change there, I don't think they'll have the talent ready at that point in time. It's going to take a little while for Hugh Freeze to get all set up and squared away. But I'm interested in that game just to see what that even looks like. But, yeah, I mean, outside of the Tennessee road game in mid-November, there's not a lot to really sweat over.
Missouri almost beat them. So there's somebody on there that we don't think about that somehow it's just the way it is. Some of the most unbelievable teams ever had, sweated out. So somebody will, plus maybe a Tennessee or Auburn. But, yeah, they're just rolling right into that season.
Yeah. And number 1, Notre Dame, over 8.5. I say this, and look, their schedule is, it's actually not the toughest Notre Dame schedule that they've ever had, but I say this because of my supreme faith in Sam Hartman and the fact that putting him on this roster with a defense that's going to be a year better under Marcus Freeman, and even though they lost some skilled players, I don't think they're going to miss a lot of those guys. I think they actually have some quality depth. They can, look, the toughest games on the schedule, Clemson, USC, and Ohio State. That's tough. But if you even lose all those 3 and win the rest, you are 9-3, and you're hitting the over.
Marshall.
Yeah, well, was Sam Hartman in that game? He was not.
I know, but they did lose to Marshall. And
was Sam Hartman in that game? He was not.
Yeah, there was also 10 other games after that we saw a bit more, and Marcus Freeman got his feet underneath him a little bit by the end of the year. That was a very rough start, to be sure.
No
but
kidding.
They're not going to have a repeat of that, I wouldn't think, because now he's firmly entrenched. But, that NC State game would have been – especially with Devin Leary really interesting in week 3.
Now it's Brennan Armstrong.
So it's still, an interesting game that you got to look at, but I don't know that you necessarily pick NC State to win that game. But, yeah, I mean, they have what looks like it could very well be. I don't know who to pick in them in USC right now or them in Clemson right now. I like Ohio State over them, but, there's definitely a path to 10, 11 wins here if they – play well. So yeah, I could buy over 8.5.
Yeah, I think so. And again, this is part of Sam Hartman's a gamer. He still stays healthy. They're going to win. They're going to win a lot of games with him this year.
I just think there's some teams that we just don't really know just yet, like who they're going to be and what they're going to look like. So you see certain names and you're like, okay. But yeah, those 3 would be the ones that I would start off with. And like you said, even if they lose those 3, that's still 9-3. So I like their chances a lot. And then you add in a bowl game, of course, and yeah, that seems like a good safe bet.
Well, good for hopefully everything works out for Marcus Freeman, because you're right, man. What a rocky start. You know how many people were like, did we do this right? And they ended up kind of digging themselves out of that hole. Garrett,